So my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me that as a side hustle, he's going to tax deed auctions. He's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar, and he's flipping them online, and he's making a 300% return on his investment. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm looking at companies all day long, and a great company has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. A great company.
Right.
Your average company is at 10%, and I'm looking at companies all day long less than 10%. So I don't believe him. So we go to New Mexico. I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs, and I do exactly what he says to do. I buy up 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each. I put them online. They all sell for over $1,200 each in the next 2 weeks. So it worked, 300%.
Hello and welcome to the Physician Financial Success Podcast. My name is Josh Mettle, and this is the podcast dedicated to advising physicians how to avoid financial landmines. This podcast is sponsored by the physician group at Fairway Independent Mortgage. Fairway recently expanded their physician home loan program to encompass other medical professionals, including CRNA, RN, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, veterinarians, dentists, and a host of other medical professionals. Basically, if you have an advanced degree in the medical field, you'll likely qualify for our medical professional program, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd invite you to reach out to us through our website, which is fairwayphysicianhomeloans.com, or you can call us at our direct line, 855-260-9932. We're here, and we'd absolutely love to hear from you. Today, we'll be talking with Mark Podolsky, aka the Land Geek. Mark is an expert in building passive income through real estate investments without tenants, termites, and toilets. I love that. All of my real estate investments have toilets. If we could get rid of those, that'd be awesome. Through Mark's company, Frontier Equity Properties, Mark's completed over 5,000 land deals, and he's here today to teach us the art of engineering geeky systems that create, grow, and protect your cash flow. Brother, you're speaking my language. Mark, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Josh Mettle, pulse is normal, respiration's fine. I just created a Chemex coffee. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go.
You are ready to roll. And I will tell anybody who's listening to this on the audio version podcast, rather than seeing it via video service, because we do both. Mark is walking, and he's on a walking stand-up desk, which is the first time I've ever done a podcast with somebody exercising during the podcast, so I love that. I am wearing my ugly Christmas sweater because it's our company Christmas party today, and it says, "When I think about you, I touch my elf." And then, of course, there's Santa touching his elf. And what's even weirder is I had to explain this shirt to my 9-year-old son this morning. Xander looked really awkward at me and said, okay, it's Friday. I know you have work today. That's not a work outfit. It's not an exercise outfit. So why are you wearing that ugly sweater, and what does that mean? I had to tell him, well, when you've been a good boy and Santa sees you, he has to touch his elf to let him know that you're one of the kids who gets Christmas presents.
That's really some incredible improv there. To be able to think that quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Well, when you got 9-year-olds around, you gotta think quick, Mark.
Oh yeah.
So, buddy, tell us a little bit about your background and how in the world did you get it started with land investing?
So, let's rewind to like the year 2000, and I'm a miserable, micromanaged, overworked, overstressed investment banker, and I specialized in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups. And I had a 45-minute commute to work and back, and it got so bad for me, Josh, that I wouldn't get the Sunday blues anticipating Monday coming around. I'd get the Friday blues anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me that as a side hustle, he's going to tax deed auctions. He's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar, and he's flipping them online, and he's making a 300% return on his investment. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm looking at companies all day long, And a great company has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow, a great company.
Right.
Your average company is at 10%, and I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%, so I don't believe him. So we go to New Mexico, I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs, and I do exactly what he says to do. I buy up 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each. I put them online. They all sell for over $1,200 each in the next 2 weeks. So it worked, 300%. So I took all that money. I went to another auction where I live in Arizona. And again, this is 2000. There's zone in the room. I'm buying up lots. I'm buying up acreage. And I sold all that property. And it took about 6 months, and I made over $90,000.
Wow.
So I said to my wife, I'm like, honey, I want to quit my job, and I want to become a full-time land investor. And she's pregnant at the time. And she's like, absolutely not. So I worked land investing as a side hustle, and it took about 18 months for the land investing income to exceed the investment banking income. And then I quit, and I've been doing it full-time ever since.
Awesome, man. Well, that is a great story. And I'm glad to hear that you eventually convinced your wife. I would imagine, I think that was sound advice of her, by the way, to say absolutely not at the time and make you prove yourself. That was pretty cool.
No, I mean, and she's annoying in that way. Like, she always looks at me just like, I'm always right. I'm like, I know. Yeah.
Oh, man, it sounds like you've been married as long as me.
Oh, yeah. 21 years.
Awesome, man. Yeah. All right, well, listen, your website is pretty interesting. And it says a few things that I want to chat about and have you tell me about, because again, I have zero knowledge in this space of yours. But the website says that investing in land can be simple and low risk. So help us understand how an investment can be simple, lucrative, and low risk.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through it step by step.
Cool.
All right, so Josh, where do you live?
Salt Lake City, Utah.
You're in Salt Lake City. Okay, so I'm going to go to the tax or the county treasurer, right? Okay. And I'm going to go to this county in Texas. And I see, oh my gosh, Josh Mettle owns 10 acres in Texas, and he owes $200 in back taxes. Well, Josh, you're advertising two things to me. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to that raw land. You're in Utah, the property's in Texas. And number two, you're distressed in some way, because when we don't pay for something, we don't value it anymore. Now, I don't know what's going on with you, but something's going on. And you've been getting notices from the treasurer every single month that if you don't pay your taxes, you're going to lose your property either to a tax deed investor or a tax lien investor, right? So what I'll do then is I'm going to look at the comparable sales for, let's say, the 12 to 18 months on those similar 10-acre parcels. And then all I'm going to do is divide by 4. And that's going to get me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety, right? So in our example, if the comps are 10 grand, the most I'm going to pay for your parcel is $2,500. So I'm not going to be like the housing guys. I'm not going to say I'm interested in buying your land. I'm going to send you an actual offer of $2,500 for your property. Now you're going to accept it because $2,500 is better than nothing. Now in reality, 3 to 5% of people accept our quote unquote top dollar offers, but you accept it. And so the next step for me is I've got to go through a list of what we call due diligence or in-depth research. Number one, I got to make sure you still own the property. Number two, I got to confirm that the taxes are only $200. Number three, I got to make sure there's those breaks in the chain of title. Number four, I got to make sure there's no liens or encumbrances clouding that title. Number five, I got to make sure there's something compelling about the property. Why is anyone else going to want to buy that property? And then I go down the line. And essentially what we do on these parcels is we outsource our due diligence to our group in the Philippines. They're connected to an American title company. They prepare the plat maps, the GIS maps, the Google Earth aerial view maps. They get the pictures. And while they're doing the due diligence, they're creating for me a marketing package at the exact same time for that next buyer. And this is where the magic happens. And this is where our land investing niche has the greatest advantage over all the other real estate niches. I have a built-in best buyer for your parcel of land in Texas. Do you know who it is?
The internet.
Nope. Nope. It's a tough one, Josh. You
I
didn't
don't
get
know.
quizzed on your own podcast.
Yeah, you got me.
The neighbors.
Ah.
So I send out neighbor letters and say, look, before I go to the open market, here's your opportunity. Expand your holdings, protect your views, protect your privacy, know who your neighbor is going to be, right? So oftentimes the neighbors are going to buy that parcel. Now, if they pass, I'm going to go to my buyers list. If the buyers list passes, I'm going to go to a little website you've probably never heard of called Craigslist. It's the 10th most trafficked website in the United States. I'll go to another even smaller one that you may have heard of called Facebook, buy-sell groups and marketplace. Within 30 days, I'm going to sell that property. And the way I'm going to sell it is I'm going to make it irresistible. I'm going to ask for a $2,500 down payment. So I'm going to get my money out on the down, or maybe within 6 months of the down. And then I'm just going to make it a car payment. Let's say $449 a month at 9% interest over the next 84 months, right? So now I've created a passive income stream of $449 a month for the next 84 months. I don't have to deal with any renters, rehabs, renovations, or rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, all this onerous real estate legislation. And then the game we play is, can we create enough of these land notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses, and then we're working because we want to, not because we have to. And that's the model.
I feel like we could end the podcast right here. Like you blew my mind, and we're 10 minutes in.
See, it's very simple, but obviously it's not easy, right?
So tell us a little bit more. First of all, I love the simplicity of the plan. And
Right.
I love also how you have thought through the ability of taking this from a flip business to a passive income business. I'm all about that.
Right.
And walk us through how one would get started with your group, right? Let's take me, for example. I've invested in real estate. I have some index funds. I've got my little investments sprinkled around, and I say, okay, I'm interested in trying this out. What's the course for the prototypical person that meets you and comes into your system?
So, most of the people that come to me have what I call solo economic dependency, which means if they're not working, they're not making any money, right? So let's take a surgeon, for example. If his hands aren't in somebody's body, he's not generating any revenue, right? So that person, even though they may love surgery, at some point their back is going to start getting sore. They might start feeling some type of, just external pressure as their life begins to evolve. Well, what happens if I get hurt? Disability is not going to cover it anymore, and those types of things. And they need some other passive income vehicles, right? Well, now they've got a time issue, right? Because from an effective hourly rate, that surgeon, the most effective time is going to be doing surgery. So they have either two options. Number one, they can try to do it themselves, or number two, they could go to somebody like me, and if they're an accredited investor, then I can talk to them one-on-one about a fund, right? But if they're, let's say, they have a smaller effective hourly rate, it might be worth it for them to start doing it on their own and building a team and do what I did, right? And make 300 to 1,000% margins on these land deals, because we've basically created systems and software and automation so it's 90% automated. And once that is built, then you've got this machine of just doing all your land deals on sort of autopilot, if you will. And now you're just managing it. So what do I spend 2 hours a week in Frontier Properties with my team, and all I'm doing is I'm looking at numbers. How many offers went out? How many deals are pending? How many deals did we close? And did anyone default this month? So in the case of default, we use a land contract, which essentially means that we keep the down payment, we keep all the monthly payments, and then we resell that property. There's no costs of foreclosure, which really lowers our risk as well. So I would say for somebody getting started, they'd have to really have to determine for themselves which camp they want to be in. And then number two, just like anything else, you've got to commit to it and really, sort of let go of the timeline, right? Some people, they start moving the needle in their lives. It takes maybe 3 to 6 months. Other people, it can take 12 to 24 months. But once that passive income starts to move the needle in your life, you become addicted to it. Just like I can tell Josh, you are, right?
Absolutely, man.
And there's no better feeling than waking up and seeing more money in your account and you didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, or for me, going on vacation and giving myself permission to be on vacation because I know the machine that I built is making money while I'm gone. And something just psychologically says, buddy, it's okay. Like, turn the phone off and be on vacation and be present with your family. It's still working.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, and that's how we test if you actually have a business or not, is can you take a month off and totally unplug? And if revenue increases, you've got a business. If not, you've got a bad job.
I love it. That's right.
Yeah.
Very well said. Hey, listen, so there were a couple of terms that you used. I just want to make sure, have you give us some definition on? And then I want to talk about Camp 1 and Camp 2 that you decided, or that you described. Sure. So the first of all, you mentioned an accredited investor. For those of our listeners who don't know what that is, would you just clear that for us?
So accredited investor is a high net worth individual, at least $1 million in net worth, or $250,000 of income per year.
Got it. And to whom do they have to prove that to?
They just have to sign a form saying that they are an accredited investor.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then you mentioned the land contract. Will you just go, you don't have to go super deep, but just go a little deeper on how that mechanism gives insurance or protection to the buyer and also protection to the seller who's now the investor, the note holder, and how that mechanism works, if you would.
Right. So for the buyer, not a lot of protection, right? So when we go and buy a house, right, the bank doesn't give us a land contract. They do what we call a deed of trust.
Right.
Right. So they deed the property to us and they put a lien on the house. If we stop making our mortgage payments, then the bank has to go through a very tedious and expensive foreclosure process to get that asset back onto their balance sheet, essentially. But a land contract basically says, hey, sorry, Mr. Buyer, right? You have a promissory note, you have a purchase sale agreement, you have a land contract. They all say the same thing. Make your payments on time. And then at the end of that promissory note contract, we're going to deed that property to you with title insurance, free and clear of all liens or encumbrances. We're not going to double sell, triple sell that property. But that is the risk with a land contract for the buyer, is in those situations. The other risk is if I die. What happens if I die? I have a land contract, right? And then there has to be some type of continuity in place where my attorney and my wife, my estate can then sign over the deed to the buyer. And we have that in place as well. So there is more risk for the buyer, but there's a lot less risk, or actually no risk for me, the seller.
So it sounds like the major difference between the two is if you sell to me on a land contract, you're actually still on title. I don't take title to the property until we execute the terms of the land contract.
Exactly. Right. So if I'm gonna loan money to you, which is essentially what I'm doing, I'm owner financing it, right? And I'm not going to ask for 50% down or 40% down, then I think it's fair.
Right. Okay, great. Very good. So now let's keep in mind that most of our listeners are trying to pack more hours into the day than there are hours into the day. And so the chances of them wanting to take this as a mainstream hobby that takes a serious amount of time for due diligence for most of our listeners is probably slim. So you mentioned a fund and I assume that's connected to your group that does all of the analytics and analysis and marketing presentations and everything else. So just would you walk us through that process?
I really have to do it on a one-to-one basis. So
Okay.
if anyone was who's an accredited investor wants to have any kind of inquiry into our fund, I can do that with them on a one-to-one basis. But the way that it's structured, for me to not run afoul of SEC rules, I can't really publicly talk about it.
That makes sense. No problem. So we'll give you your contact information. People can reach out to you. I certainly want to learn more, so I'll be reaching out to you post-interview here, buddy.
Sure.
Now let's talk about the other camp. Let's say somebody does have extra time, and this is so fascinating to them that they want to really get into it. How would you advise them, and what steps would you say they should take?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of physician clients, but they themselves are not doing the business, just like what you said. They want to pack more hours into what they're doing, but for their children, they have their children doing it.
Interesting.
So essentially, they're being the bank, and then the kids are doing the work. And so the way that it gets started then is there's a couple different ways to get educated. So we have several different levels of training, everything from do-it-yourself, a digital course, all the way up to one-on-one coaching where we hold your hand for a year.
Great. Okay. So you alluded to Camp 1 and Camp 2. I just want to make some real clarity around those. Camp 1 is someone who, let's say, is more of a do-it-yourselfer and has maybe a team built around them, exactly like I do. My wife and mom are upstairs, and they run the real estate business while I'm running the rest of our businesses. Right. And I'm injecting the capital, and they do the heavy lifting, if you will.
Right.
And you have a coaching platform or process and material available to educate a team or someone how to do that.
Right. So what we've essentially done is we've eliminated every pain point in the land investing business for our clients, right? So just like you said, like what if you don't have, a family in place to do this? So we have a Land Geek VA team, virtual assistants that are already pre-trained. They have office space in the Philippines, reliable internet, and they're already trained. They know how to run our business. So we provide that service for our clients. We also provide the software for our clients. So essentially all they have to do is get the list, scrub the list, upload the list into our software, and using lob.com and API, the offers immediately go out.
Wow.
Right? Once those offers come back in, our team does the due diligence for them. Once they get those due diligence pieces back, it's all within the software. And the software takes them from sending out offers all the way to the sale. And essentially, we can have our VAs do ad writing for Craigslist or Facebook postings, right? We teach them how to start building a buyer's list. We teach them really how to market, because the only two things that make money in this real estate business is mailing and marketing. That's it. Everything else, is not really essential to the business. It's kind of fun, right? So I always get annoyed when my clients are like, hey, I'm working on my logo. I'm like, well, how much money is that logo going to make you? Like, forget about the logo. So, we provide that. And then on the back end, we automate the note collection. So we have a program called geekpay.io. It's a set it and forget it system. And what's beautiful about that is we know we're getting paid. So it takes the down payment, and then every month via ACH or their checking account, it draws out their monthly fee from the checking account. It does the amortization math if you're charging interest. It does all the notifications. And then if their ACH bounces for whatever reason, we take a credit card on file as a backup. So we know we're getting paid. Now, if the ACH and the credit card fail, then we know we better resell that property because we probably have a bad buyer. Right. And within 30 days, we'll resell that property, get a new down payment, get a new note. And, in a bad economy, our default rate is about 8%. In a good economy like today, we're at about a default rate of 4%.
So it sounds like soup to nuts, you've got a system that's going to educate and assist somebody if they want to do it themselves. And Camp 2 is the fund where they could come to you and just park some money and let you run the magic.
Right. So exactly. So land business in a box, or, here at Mark, just do it.
Yep. Got it. Wonderful. Okay. So listen, I know we're running short on time, but I would love you to end us with a story or two. Maybe just talk to us a little bit about what was the funnest land deal you ever did? Maybe it's the most lucrative. Maybe it was just fun for one reason or another. And then give us the biggest mistake you made, the one that cost you the most amount of money or put the most amount of yoke on your face, or the one that you learned the most from a painful lesson.
Yeah. So let's just start with the bad one, right?
I think
we can learn more from the mistakes. So it's 2006, and I'm telling you, I think I'm the smartest guy in the room. And I'm making so much money in land investing, and I find this overdeveloped subdivision in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, and it's beautiful. It's gated. It's got $1 million homes in there, 2 PGA rated golf courses, 3 lakes. It's like a country club. They got their restaurant and the post office. And I fly in there. I'm like, look, you've got 1,000 lots here just sitting there. It's dead money because there's POA fees, property owner association fees.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've got liens on all this property. The county's getting nothing. The owners association is getting nothing. Give me that 1,000 lots, right? And I'm going to sell them all. I'm going to get a new buyer in there. I'm going to make that money come alive, right? Well, they start negotiating with me. They're like, well, who are all these people going to be? And they're going to fill up the lake, and I'm going to start standing in line at the post office. And I'm flying back and forth and negotiating the whole time, not realizing the effective hourly rate of my time, right? So I'm spending all this time. So finally, I take down the 1,000 lots, and I'm paying like nothing for them, but let's say $50 a lot. But I took them all down at once, right? And the deal that I made was during my ownership of the lots, I'm not going to pay taxes. I'm not going to pay POA fees, right? And then I'll get someone else to sell them. And that was what I negotiated. Well, what happens in 2008? Right. So I made about $100,000 on that deal before the crash. But it was the first time in business I was not able to keep my word. And when I did the backwards calculation of how much time it took me to make that $100,000, it's the first deal I ever did that I feel like I broke even on, right? That was the worst deal. And to this day, I stay away from these POA association fees. My buyers just don't want them. The best deal I ever did was with a public company. They bought millions of acres of land from the railroad, and they just wanted the mineral rights. They didn't want the land. So I came in there, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time. So I had them owner finance me $1 million. And so essentially I borrowed $1 million from them. And then I bought the 640 acre sections. I subdivided them into 40 acre parcels. And I made over $5 million on that one deal.
Wow.
So that was a good one.
Awesome engineering. And how long into your career in land investing were you when you came upon that deal?
About 3 years.
Did you get to circle back to your wife and make her say those beautiful, beautiful words, Mark, you were right?
Okay, so how long have you been married?
15 years, man. I'm 15
years. So I got 3 kids. There's no way on earth I was going to circle back. No way.
Yeah, good call. Very good call.
Yeah.
I was just, I think I heard those 3 words once in my 15-year marriage, and I was just wondering if you ever got those back.
Yeah, no, because she has such a longer list of times when I've been wrong.
You dare not bring it up.
That's a box I don't want to open.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Mark, what else should our listeners know? And of course, I don't want to end before you tell them what's their next step. How do they reach you? Where should they learn more? But anything else that you think our listeners should know, any wisdom you want to impart?
Well, I love this Zig Ziglar quote. I always like to sort of end a podcast with his quote. If you'll do for the next 3 to 5 years what other people won't do, you'll be able to do for the rest of your life what other people can't do. Now, the fact that this is a physician's podcast, they probably already know that because they've already invested in themselves in medical school and they already paid that price. But it even applies, though, from a real estate and a business perspective as well. Because there's a lot of people, Josh, that don't want to hustle out there, right? They don't want to do the analysis of how do I price a property? How do I market a property? How do I build a team so that I'm not doing the work, right? But if they do that, and they commit to it for the next 3 to 5 years, for the rest of their life, they've got this passive income business or machine that's just paying for all their bills. It starts off as grocery money, then it's car payment money, then it's mortgage and vacation money. And the next thing you know, it's, do I want to practice or not money?
Right.
And that's a nice position to be in.
And by the way, that's really where every physician wants to be. They want to be in the place where they decide that they're practicing because they love to serve and they love to take care of people, and not because they're trying to get out from this mountain of student loans. So you hit the nail on the head there, man. I thought of one more question to ask you before I let you go, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It occurred to me that because physicians are so incredibly busy, the majority of their investments seem to be low-cost index funds, handed over to a financial advisor. Let me, practice my trade, spend a little time with my family, and maybe I can get on the mountain bike or the skis, a couple of times if I do things right. But they don't have time for another side hustle. So that kind of relegates them in many instances to just financial advisors and index funds. This appears to me to be the ultimate diversification because it is not correlated to the stock market. It's not correlated to gold. It's not correlated to a bond yield. And at the same time, it is something that has a passive income component. So which is another level of diversification. When you have a stock portfolio and you get to retirement, now it's kind of like you're at the top of the hill and you're looking down and you're like, all right, I better make sure that I don't spend all this money. But, I want to make sure I die before I spend all this money because I don't want to be 90 and no money.
Right.
So it gives them diversification away from index funds and what they're typically investing in, but also diversification in the fact that it brings in a heavy stream of passive income. Anything else you would add to that or that you think would be important for physicians to think through?
Well, I think you really hit it on the head. I mean, really, if you're making, let's say, more traditional investments, right, then you're going to get more traditional returns. In alternative investments, like what we're doing, there's a reason that you have to be an accredited investor. It's a little bit more higher risk, but with that higher risk comes a lot higher reward. So if you can get your head around the model, and then you have to do due diligence on the operator. Do I trust this operator that they're going to get me the returns that they say they're going to get me in this fund? Then it's worth pursuing, right? And that's time worth investing in. And I would say that that's a better investment of your time than saying, well, I know, I can make this return on an index fund. I just, it's low cost and I don't have to think a lot. But if you spend a little bit more time, your return could be a lot higher. And that's just with, any other piece. It doesn't, have to be my fund. It could be, any other type of alternative fund. I know a guy that invests in operators that owns 300 ATM machines, and his fund throws off a 30% return.
Wow.
But it's ATM machines.
Right.
So it's these things that people don't think about that are a little bit alternative, that are quote unquote a little riskier, that you can find your upside bigger returns at. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Mark, it was a pleasure, buddy. I appreciate you. Let's leave with how do people find you and where do they go for more information? And I know you've got a couple podcasts, so if you want to plug those, I'd love you to.
Yeah. So my current podcast is the Art of Passive Income podcast. I wrote a book, Dirt Rich. You get that on Amazon. And then I think the best places to start is thelandgeek.com. And then, Josh, if your listeners want, they can start with our Passive Income Launch Kit course. It's a $97 course for free if they just go to the thelandgeek.com/launch kit, and they can just get in that course for free.
Well, that is an awesome giveaway. Thank you very much for that. You've been super generous with your time, Mark, and we appreciate you and hope to circle back with you sometime soon. Thank you.
Josh Mettle, thank you.